G'day everybody, welcome to another Affinity photo tutorial. This week we're going to do the darkness of dragons. So we're going to start off with this picture here and we're going to get rid of the sky. So I'm going to come over here to my selection brush tool and I'm just going to make a selection just of the foreground here to start with. And come up here to refine. Let's move this out of the way a little bit. Make our brush fairly big with our right and left bracket keys and let's just go over that little area there till we get a better selection. And let's just hit apply over here. Let's come up here and revert that selection and then hit delete on the keyboard so we've got rid of the sky there, and then Command D to get rid of the marching ants or the selection. So we'll come over here to our other sky. I'm going to use my rectangular marquee tool just to select that sky all the way down to that little antenna there, and then Command C to copy it. Come over to the foreground and Command V. I'm going to move that behind the background here and just name that sky and hit enter. Over on our move tool and I'm just going to stretch that sky and then move it up a bit. So about there looks pretty good. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do on the foreground, so let's just name that foreground. Just going to add a recolor down here, recolor, clip it to the foreground. And I'm just going to move it into the sort of orangey red there. About there looks pretty good. And the next picture I'm going to bring over is this fiery sky picture. Command C. And I'm going to just put that above the sky here. Command V. Stretch that all the way over. Maybe bring it up a little bit. And I'm going to change the blend mode on that to average, so it blends in with those clouds. Okay, so that's the fire in the sky. So we're going to add some of these flames. So Command C, back to our foreground, right on top here, Command V. We're going to change the blend mode of that to screen. I'm going to make two copies, another one Command J, and that one I'm just going to turn off. Just concentrate on this one for now, make it smaller. I'm going to turn it around. I'm going to start placing some of these around my picture. So I'm just going to put a mask on that. With my brush, got a sort of a soft brush. The color's black and about 25% is good. And I'm just going to blend that in a little bit there. And I'm going to start making quite a few copies and moving them around the picture. So we've got some over here. Again, a copy. I'm just going to move lots into place, making them a little bit smaller and bigger as I go around. Okay, once we've got lots of our fire in place, let's just highlight all of those. Command G, and let's call that fire. And we'll use this one up here a little bit later. So we've got that in place. Let's now grab our dragon. So Command C and bring our dragon across. And we want the dragon right on top. And let's place him sort of about there. Looks pretty good. And let's bring over our wizard as well. Command C and back over again right on top. Put the wizard underneath the dragon. So let's call that dragon and let's call this one wizard. And let's make our wizard a bit smaller. Sort of about, actually let's have our wizard on top and our dragon on bottom. Let's just move our dragon up a bit and move our wizard maybe a bit taller. About there looks pretty good. Okay, on each of these, let's add an exposure. Clip it to the wizard. Let's bring that a little bit darker. And also on the dragon, let's add an exposure down here as well. Clip that to the dragon. Let's bring that exposure down a little bit as well. on our wizard layer, let's add a new pixel layer and let's add that underneath the wizard. And let's change our colors to black with our brush here. 25% is okay, and let's just add a little bit of a shadow around our wizard. Looks pretty good. Can just call that shadow. Okay, we're sort of getting everything in place. With our dragon, let's add a recolor. I'm going to add a couple of recolors. So let's add a recolor first. Clip that to the dragon. And let's bring the color to make it sort of close to the yellowy reds here. So sort of about there. Let's invert that color. Grabbing our brush, we want sort of a harder brush about this one here. The color is going to be white and the flow is going to be 100%. Make our brush a little bit bigger and we're going to zoom all the way in because we're going to add some highlights. So we're just going to start right on the edge here. You can see because we're painting in white, we've got 100%. And we're just going to add some of these highlights around our dragon. Let's just put up the hardness to about 10. Just making our brush bigger and smaller with our bracket keys. Let's go around and do those highlights. I'm going to do it fairly quickly and you can take a little bit more time. Make that a little bit smaller. What I'm going to do now, make my brush a little bit bigger and let's drop that flow all the way down to about 10%. Make my brush quite big. I'm just going to add a little bit of color. 10% there. And I'm going to change my color to black. Drop that to about 3% and just soften those edges a little bit. Pretty good. Going to add another recolor to my dragon. Going to go for the sort of more of the yellowy color that's in the fire. And invert that as well with the Command I. Brush back to the flow of 100%. Back to painting in white. And we're just going to add some of that yellow as well. And then the other thing on the dragon, another exposure. Clip to the dragon and bring the brightness all the way up. And invert that exposure as well with the Command I. Let's bring our flow down to about 50%. Painting in white still. And then I'm just going to add some little highlights, especially on the bottom here. And up here, just tiny little highlights around the dragon. And I'm happy with that. So like I said, I've done that fairly quickly, so you can take your time on that. Let's make that a little bit smaller. So now we've got our dragon done, we can concentrate on our wizard. So I'm going to bring over the sort of magic spell, the magic whizzing around the wizard. I'm going to use this to simulate that. So Command C, over to the foreground, again right on top Command V, going to change that to screen, and I'm going to add a recolor to that as well. Recolor. I find using the recolor a little bit easier than the HSL sliders, but you can use HSL sliders if you want to. I'm going to bring the hue into that blue color and clip that just to that sort of magic spell swirl here. And I'm going to make another copy, Command J. On the move tool here, I'm going to move the first one down in front of the wizard here and just stretch it out a little bit. About there, looks pretty good. And on that one, I'm going to add a mask. Making my brush a lot softer now. Grabbing the paintbrush, Going to be painting in black. Flow at 25%. Going to zoom in again, and I'm going to take away this part here so it looks like this swirl is going around the wizard. Okay, Command 0. That looks pretty good. Let's just back onto our move tool and let's just move that up a little bit, about there. Okay, the other one I'm going to bring down sort of higher up the wizard, sort of near the head here. Again, I'm going to add a mask. Still got our brush on 25%. Let's zoom in again. And let's take that away from here, away from his head. Okay, Command 0. So now we've got our magic swirling around the wizard. So what we're going to do is on our wizard here, we're going to add another recolor, clip that to our wizard, and we're going to have that reddy orange color as well. But we're going to bring down the opacity on that color, just so we've got that sort of glowy red. Okay, then another recolor, clip that to our wizard, and this one's going to be the sort of bluey color as the magic, and this one we're going to invert with the Command I. Going to grab our brush, 100% flow. Again, we're going to go for that little bit of a harder brush. Maybe this one here. Make sure we're on black and our flow is 100. We'll put our hardness up to about 10 as well. Zoom in again and a bit of a bigger brush, and then we're going to put some of these blue highlights, make sure we're in white, just round our wizard here from the magic. And the hands as well. Okay, again I'm going to drop my flow all the way down to about 10%. Make my brush a little bit bigger, and I'm just going to put some of that blue in the creases there. So we've got this blue coming from our magic swirls onto our wizard. And again I'm going to change to black now, drop the flow a little bit lower, and then just soften these edges. Okay, Command 0. It's looking pretty good, a bit softer up here maybe. Okay, I'm happy with that. Let's just close that down. And that fire that we turned off earlier, the piece of flame, let's bring that one all the way up the top and turn it back on again. Grabbing our move tool, let's make that a bit smaller. So what I'm going to do with this one is make another copy and another copy. So I've got 3 copies. So the first one I'm going to bring over to my dragon. Let's bring that down to the dragon, on top of the dragon here. Make it smaller. I'm going to turn it around and place it in the dragon's mouth here and add a mask. So let's zoom in. Place it where we want, about there. On our mask, let's grab our brush. Again, we'll go for a softer brush. 25% is good, and we're painting in black. Make our brush a little bit smaller, and let's just make it look like that fire's coming out of the dragon's mouth there. Maybe shorten that a little bit. So that looks pretty good. So we've got that fire coming out of the dragon's mouth. So let's copy that one, come back to our move tool. Now let's really make this quite thin and turn it around, and let's move it up to the dragon's nostril up here. About up there. We've got that mask on it because we copied it. Let's zoom in, grabbing our brush again, and we want to make that look a bit smaller. That's where we want it. Grabbing our brush, and let's just make that look like it's coming out of the nostril there. Okay, that looks pretty good. Let's copy that one again, Command J, and on that one, let's come up to here, Arrange, and flip horizontal. Back on our Move tool, and let's put that one into this nostril here. Coming onto our mask, back to our brush, let's just get rid of those little bits up there. Okay, that looks pretty good. While we're on our dragon here, let's click on our dragon layer and add a new pixel layer right on the top. Double click on these colors and let's come to the green color, really intense green. Let's change that blend mode to overlay and let's turn our flow up to 100%. Our hardness can go up to 10% as well, 9 or 10%. Making our brush quite small. Let's give our dragon some green eyes. Pretty sure dragons have green eyes. Command 0, so now we've got our dragon and our flames in place. Now this little flame over here that we've left here, up here, add a recolor to that. Clipping it to that little flame and then changing that color to the blue as well. Let's make it smaller. And this one's going to be on his hand here. So all that magic is coming out of his hands. The other one, we're going to add a recolor to that as well. Clipping it to that one, changing the color to the blue. This one we're going to bring underneath the wizard. We're going to make that smaller. And that's going to go under this hand here. So that magic is coming out of his hands. So there we go, we've got our wizard in place, we've got our dragon in place. Let's make that a little bit smaller. So let's bring over these stars here, just a little bit more magic in the air. Command C, right on top of the wizard here. Command V, and again to screen. We're also going to duplicate that with a Command J, and we're going to move one right underneath down here, underneath the dragon. So we've got those both in front and underneath our dragon. And that one we could actually go arrange and flip horizontal to give a different sort of pattern. So now we've got our sort of magic all in place. So another thing on top here, we're going to add some smoke. So Command C, back again, and let's just right on top Command V. Let's change the blend mode on that one to average. And bring the blend mode or the opacity, let's bring the opacity all the way down to about 25. Make that picture a little bit smaller and let's stretch that all the way out. A little bit smaller again. Let's stretch that all the way out, just gives that little bit of texture. Command 0, make it a little bit smaller. So we've got our smoke in place now. Now, one little thing to add if you want to, this is completely up to you. I do have this castle here and it's not in the original picture, so let's just copy that. Going to put that right down here. Command V, move it over to the side here and just stretch it out right on the side, and then I'm going to drop the opacity a fair bit down to about 25. I want it to look like it's way off in the distance. And just on that castle I'm going to add an FX, an outer glow, and I'm going to pick that sort of orangey color. This is going to be very subtle. Give it a bit of a glow and an inner glow. Again, that color, sort of that orangey color. Turn that up a little bit. Like I said, very subtle in the background. We might just bring that up a little bit. So like I said, that's purely optional. Add or do not add that if you don't want to, if you don't think it adds anything to the picture. Entirely up to you. Okay, right on top, I'm going to add a lens filter just for a little bit more pop. Might just bring that down a tiny little bit. That just adds that extra little bit of pop there. We're going to highlight all of our layers holding my shift key down and come up to layer and merge visible. Now you can either come over here to the tone mapping or come over here to your develop persona. I used the develop persona today and we're going to turn the clarity up. Going to turn the contrast up a little bit. Bring down the exposure. Come over here to detail and bring that up to about 30 And I'm also going to add a tiny little bit of noise and leave it at that with develop. And like I said, you can go into the tone mapping if you want to as well. You saw that I did that on the speed art, but I think doing the develop persona does the same sort of thing. So there you go, everybody. That is my tutorial this week on the darkness of dragons. If you've enjoyed the tutorial, please give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my video. If you would like to show your appreciation, you can head over to the Buy Me a Coffee site. And until next time, I'm going to say to you, stay well, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video.